Hey everybody, so I'm sharing this video with family. This is the first video I'm sharing. This is one is about my trip to Istanbul, Turkey. My first trip, first and only. I haven't been back, and it occurred in December of 2016. I believe I left on the 23rd of December and stayed until Christmas Day, the 25th. We had a weekend, 3-day weekend off from work in Saudi Arabia, where I worked at the time. And I took advantage of that long 3-day weekend to travel from Saudi Arabia to Turkey. I boarded a plane. It's only about a 4-hour flight. So I, rationalized that, it's pretty much the distance from LA, less than LA to New York, slightly less of a distance. So I said, what the hey, that's not a big deal. Let's do it. Another reason why I chose Turkey is because I had heard that it's a beautiful country and that it's, worth visiting. So I heard so many good things about Turkey that I decided, let's do it. And plus, by the time I moved to Saudi Arabia from South Korea, which was in 2016, I was ready. I was more willing to travel because I had lived in South Korea for nearly a decade, and I hadn't traveled to many countries. So to give you a comparison, I lived in Korea for nearly a decade, and I traveled to about 5 countries, including my home country of the United States, Korea, which was my second home, Japan, Taiwan, and what's the 5th country? Maybe the Philippines by that time. Was it the Philippines? Anyhow, there were only 5 countries that I had traveled to. Probably 4 countries over a 10-year time span. So that was just terrible. So by the time I got to Saudi Arabia, I knew I was earning more money and I was in a different part of the globe where I could reach other countries easily. So I decided, all right, I can travel more now, especially I can afford it. That was really big. Okay. So it was Turkey. Turkey was my very first destination. So here's what I want to tell you about the experience. I flew from Saudi Arabia to Turkey. I got to the airport and I got into the country with no problem. I had my visa and all that already, socked away. I had applied for that before arrival. I'm a very prepared traveler, but I wasn't prepared really for this experience, for, what I discovered. So I get into the country and I arrived at Ataturk airport, which is no longer an airport. It's shut down permanently, okay, which I discovered only last night because as I was thinking about this story, I did some research and there I found that Ataturk no longer exists. Well, it was December 2016 and you can look this up. 3 or 4 months prior to my arrival in December 2016, there was a terrorist attack at Ataturk International Airport. People lost their lives and there were several gunmen and it was just a crazy, chaotic scene. So I completely missed my timing for going to Turkey was great because I completely missed any terrorist activity. Thank God. But that is what happened, a few months before my arrival. So that sort of, that colored my experience because my senses were up. My antennas were up. I'm looking around and it looked slightly more cautious than before. Anyhow, I got into the country. I got, as I'm at the airport, I wanted to get information about Istanbul. So I went to the information desk. There was a nice gentleman there. He was talking to his friend who happened to be a woman. And I asked them for information about, sightseeing and whatnot. And they told me, take the bus, take the train, take taxis. Istanbul is a very safe city. Have a great time. And the information booth attendant said, hey, since you're new to the city, if you're going to take the bus, if you're going to take public transportation, traveled with this woman. She's my friend. She's going to a similar direction where you're going. If you travel together, she can help you, navigate. So I thought that was a great idea and a great suggestion. And I didn't mind, I welcomed having a fellow passenger. Now, this woman was slightly older than me, maybe 10 years, probably late 40s to her 50s. And it was no problem. I said, yeah, that'd be great. The actual problem was she didn't speak much English, very little English. She was Ukrainian, a Ukrainian woman. Okay. Well, here's what happens next. So, yeah, I hear the suggestion, to take buses and taxis and whatever, but I also have this idea to rent a car. Now, I've traveled to, I lived in South Korea and I owned a car there. I traveled to the Middle Eastern country of Bahrain, where I often would rent a car on weekends. And I traveled, I was now living in Saudi Arabia, where I was driving a company vehicle. So those are 3 countries right there where I had already driven cars. And I decided, well, let's make, the 4th country, Turkey. So instead of public transportation, plus I had the money, I said, I'm going to afford this, right? So I said, hey, I'll just rent a car. You can ride with me. You can direct me in the traffic. The lady agreed. She said, okay, fine. So I went to the car rental company, and there I had several choices, and I skipped over the American company, Enterprise Rental Car, which I shouldn't have done because I assume Enterprise would have treated me, very well. But I wanted more of an authentic Turkish experience. So I went to a smaller Turkish company, and I basically got screwed. Here's how. The car that I selected, when they delivered the car to me, it had less than, I believe, 1/4 of a tank of gas in it. And, it really didn't weigh on me when the car was delivered, because I figured, all right, well, the first mission, after I get out of the airport, is just to get gas to get me to my final destination. But that was a problem because I didn't know the terrain, and yeah, I didn't know how much gas was going to be. It just complicated matters, but only slightly, because I thought I had enough gas to get me, where I needed to go. But gas was an issue. All right, so the next issue was, along with the car, I rented a GPS navigation system from the car company. They provided me with a GPS navigation system, but the GPS navigation system required that it be plugged into a power source. And the only power source on the vehicle was the cigarette lighter. Well, once I got into the vehicle and I tried to plug the cable into the cigarette lighter, I discovered the cigarette lighter did not work. So the power source for the GPS system, was obsolete, it wasn't there. Then it was raining. It was slightly drizzling, but that complicated matters. And I had my passenger, this woman, this stranger, whom I just met. So that was going to be the beginning of my journey, my adventure in Istanbul. I just rented this car, and I had discovered these defaults only after the car was delivered to me and I was handed the keys, and the guy was like, all right, have a good, safe trip. I had discovered these things once I got into the car, and I had already paid my money. I had already signed the contract. So I just felt like, well, you're stuck with this vehicle. The next thing was, getting to my destination. And the female passenger I was with decides to sit in the back seat of the vehicle. So already, when she does this, instead of, it being a friendly trip, for 2 strangers, it seemed like I was a driver, and she was my passenger. And this was, you know, basically driving Mrs. Daisy. I was like, wait a minute, you know. So I didn't like that per se. But, you know, I was coming from a Muslim country, from Saudi Arabia, where women do not drive. Well, at the time, women did not drive. Today, everything has changed. And when when a family is driving, the woman cannot sit in the front seat. Or the only way a woman can sit in the front seat is if she is the wife of the man, of the driver, you know, something like that. Excuse me. Okay. So we leave the airport and we're driving, and I discovered that the navigation system, you know, number one, it doesn't have a power source, and the battery is very weak. But, you know, again, I'm on a wing and a prayer. You know, I'm hoping that I'll get to my destination rather than later. If you look at a map, you can see that the Ataturk International Airport is about half an hour from Sultanahmet, and that was my destination. So at least I was going to drive for 30 minutes. It really turned out to me driving for maybe an hour and 15 minutes because, of course, I made a turn here or there because I didn't have the navigation system to follow. And through the process of getting lost, yeah, the amount of time that I spent driving just, increased. Well, the navigation device, let's get back to that because, yes, I didn't have an extra power source, and even the battery that was very low, well, yeah, that presented another issue. But the biggest issue was this navigation system needed to be updated, and it needed to be connected to a network in order for it to recognize its location and as it's pinging along the roads. But no, this network card or what have you, the data card had not been updated. So essentially the GPS navigation system did not work at all. All right, so let's recap. A faulty GPS, or a GPS system that didn't work, a cigarette lighter that didn't work, didn't provide me with power for the vehicle, a vehicle with slightly less than a quarter of a tank of gas in it, and it was raining, and I had this female passenger who I had become her driver, and she didn't speak much English, and she was just like, hey, okay, go. She said, I think it's in that direction, good luck, we'll see, sort of thing. So these were the complications these are the things that complicated my, the first few hours of my arrival to Istanbul, Turkey. So it took an extremely long time. It took about an hour to get, 30-minute drive turned into an hour because there was also traffic. And I was nervous about getting off of the highway because that's where I was. I was driving along the highway on the edge of the city, and there were no gas stations to just pull off of the road for miles. So that became an issue. And I just hoped that I had enough gas to get me to Sultanahmet. When we finally arrived near Sultanahmet, there was a gas station. There was a visible gas station. I quickly pulled into. We had so little gas by that point. I filled up, and I was relieved because we had, we bit the bullet. We right just in the nick of time. There was enough gas. As far as navigating, I had to pull my cell phone out, and luckily my cell phone was connected to the network, and it was updating me on my position. But again, because I didn't have access to a power source, my cell phone battery was draining. So that complicated matters even more. So I was just like, oh, dear God, please let us get to my destination as soon as possible. And so by the time we got near my destination, the woman became excited because she said, "Oh yes, yes, we're near. We're not too far. Just keep going. We're almost there." So I felt relieved when she said that. I pulled into the back streets into the neighborhood where I was staying, where my Airbnb was located, and I found my destination. I parked the car. We got out, and this strange woman, this stranger, I gave her a hug. She gave me a hug, and she said, "Good luck on your journey," whatever. And I said, thank you very much for your help. What little, she provided. But it was just a nice, sort of moral support that she provided, from the back seat of the car, just to say, hey, you will get there. Just be patient, on your journey, which was nice. And because I didn't have to be alone, with all of these complications and these things. I think I failed to mention that I didn't even know that this car, that when I was when I was signing the rental agreement, that this car was a manual transmission vehicle. I think I failed to mention that. So that further complicated matters. And although I know how to drive a manual transmission vehicle, because I had learned and I had been driving a manual transmission, a stick shift in Korea, it hadn't been it had been about 4 years since I had driven. So all of these memories had to come back to me, and that was just pretty nerve-wracking. So imagine all of these issues complicating the matter for me. And so let's see, to wrap this up, we got to the destination, we embraced, she told me good luck on my trip, she went her way and I went mine. And for the next, I believe, within 72 hours, I was in, that was the duration, something within 72 hours. It was a 3-day weekend. That's how long I stayed in Istanbul. I went to the different sites and whatnot, and I had a great time. I used the car. I drove around to different places. No problems whatsoever there. But yeah, when I left the country, I had to fill the gas tank up. When I returned the car, which just seems ridiculous. Receiving a car whose tank wasn't full to have to return it full. That was, ridiculous. But of course, I didn't want to have any problems, getting out of this country. I was just like, whatever, guys, They gave me my deposit back. The rental company gave me my deposit back. So at least that they were on the up and up about that. But yeah, so I got out of Istanbul. I jumped on the plane and I flew back to Saudi Arabia, and everything was fine. And 2 weeks later, 2 weeks thereafter, this is a news story that you can check on Google or something. There was another terrorist attack in Istanbul at a club, and the people lost their lives. There were armed gunmen who just rushed into a club and then started shooting up the club and what have you. And so the terrorist attack occurred, after I left Istanbul, and then that previous terrorist attack I mentioned occurred before I had arrived in Istanbul. So when I was in Istanbul, that was the sweet spot. There were no activities, terrorist activities taking place. Thank God, during that time that I was there, I had a wonderful time, except for all of the challenges that car presented to me. All right, so that was those are some of the details about my first trip to Istanbul. There were others, and I'll potentially make another video about those others, but just a little something to tell you about that experience right there. Peace.